What's going on YouTube? It's Vinny here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do rear brakes on a 2013 to 2020 Lexus IS 300. All right, these are the tools that I'm going to be using for this job. I have an impact gun with a 3/8 drive and a 1/2 inch drive. I have a 14 and a 17 millimeter socket. They're both 3/8. I have a 3/8 ratchet. I have a 1/2 inch breaker bar with a 21 millimeter socket for the lug nuts. And then if your car comes with wheel locks, you're going to need your wheel lock key. I have a big pair of pliers to squeeze the piston back in. A small flathead or a small tiny pry bar will help you get your brake pads out, and since we're going to be replacing the rotors as well, either one of these hammers will work to help get it off. You're also going to need a wire brush to clean the hub, some brake grease for your pads, and then I just have an assortment of torque wrenches depending on what we're torquing down. You also may need jack stands as well as a car jack, and then of course your parts. Got 2 rotors and a set of pads. Links will be in the description for all the stuff used in this video. All right, the first step's going to be to remove the wheel. What you're going to have to do is jack the car up, and the way you know where the jack goes is you're going to look, and there's going to be a little arrow right here on the bottom of the side skirt, and that's the placement of where your jack should be, right on that pinch weld. All right, once you have the wheel off, you're going to get a 14 millimeter socket and optionally a 14 millimeter wrench. And we're going to take off the 2 14 millimeter bolts that holds on the top part of the caliper. So I just want to show you guys, sometimes when you're taking off the 14 millimeter bolt right here, this other 14 millimeter will spin, causing this boot to twist and rip. So the purpose of the 14 millimeter wrench is to slide right on there, and then you can break the nut free with the ratchet. All right. Remove those bolts. Your caliper should wiggle off, and we're going to just sit that right up on the top, just like that. Next, I like to remove the pads, so I just pull them apart. Get your flathead, wiggle those out. Here's our old pads. Definitely got your money's worth, that's for sure. All right, next, to get this caliper bracket off, there's 2 17 millimeter bolts in the back. I'm going to use the wrench for that. And if you're having trouble removing the 17 millimeter bracket bolts, then what you can do is get a breaker bar and try to bang down on that. And if that still doesn't work, you could pull a hammer out, use that to break it free. And if you have an air gun, you could always use an air gun with a swivel socket. Those are just other options. All right, you remove those 17 millimeter bolts. Make sure you don't lose these washers. Once you have the caliper completely off, since we're replacing these rotors, I'm going to show you how to remove them. So there's a few different ways. The way I like to do it is bang them off with the hammer. The other option is that there's these 2 screw holes in here, and you need a special size bolt. You would put the bolts in there and you would tighten them up, and what it would do is pull the rotor off. And just like that, you'll remove your old rotor. Okay, next let's clean up the hub and everywhere where the new rotor is going to sit onto this hub. Some people also like to add some brake cleaner to that. It's up to you. If you guys are replacing your rotors, don't forget to remove this rubber plug. That is for your parking brake adjustment. Just try to pry that out. There you go. Don't lose that. Take a quick second, inspect your parking brakes, and make sure everything kind of looks somewhat normal if you know what you're looking at. Then we'll be ready to install the new rotors. All right, here is our new PowerStop Z23 rear rotors. I purchased these on Amazon. Links will be in the description, but I just wanted to point out they are labeled. This is rear driver side and this is rear passenger side, and that is because of the drilled and slotted direction of these rotors. So do not mess that up when you go to install them. Okay, we're gonna grab our new rotors and install them. You can put a lug nut on just to hold the rotor up tight for while we install the caliper. All right, next step, we're going to prepare our calipers. So we're going to pull these pins out. Let's not mix these up. You can see the differences. One of these is slightly different with that rubber around it. We're gonna wipe off the old grease. And then we're just going to apply the new grease. And pop those in. Give them a little spin. And then just wipe off any excess. Okay, next, if your brake pads came with these new brake pad clips, then you can remove them. If not, you can gently use your wire brush to clean them. But since my brake pad set came with new ones, we're gonna remove these. To remove them, you just get your flat head under these tabs on the side, wiggle it under there until they pop off. Okay, next get your wire brush and clean these little channels out right here where your new brake pad clips will sit. Just wanted to show you with this brake kit, it actually comes with new boots for these caliper slide pins. I'm not going to be using these today because these boots look completely fine, but we will save these in case we need them in a later date. All right, next step, I just like to put a tiny dab of this grease in here. It doesn't have to be pretty, just a little bit in here to help with vibrations, and also kind of helps slide the new ones in. Not a necessary step, but it's just something I've always liked to do. Okay, now with your brake pad clips, these are kind of directional, and I'll show you what I mean. When you go to put these in, you want to make sure that this round part is facing outwards so you can slide your pad right in there. If you had them on backwards, this little bendy tab would be in the way and the brake pads wouldn't fit in good. So you just put them on there and you squeeze them in. And we're going to go ahead and do that to all of them. Once you got all 4 of those on correctly, we're going to add some more grease right in there where the pads are going to sit. Okay, then you're going to grab your new pads, and with this kit it also comes with what we called squealers or brake wear indicators, brake pad indicators. So when your brakes get low, what basically happens is they're going to be sitting on here like this. And when your brake pad wears down all the way, this little flat piece is going to squeal against the rotor to let you know that your brake pads are low and need to be replaced. Ideally, you do not want to run your brake pads that low before replacing your brakes. So these pads are going to sit here. You can see the curvature of the pad. That's how you'll know where the tops of your pads are. And you're going to be putting the squealers on the top part of each pad. And they click on like that. Okay, next you're going to get a tiny bit of grease. Really just a little bit will be fine on the ends of your brake pad. Just a little bit of grease. There we go. See, just a little bit's good enough. And try not to get it all over your squealer. Some people put the grease on before the squealer. Doesn't really matter. Next we're going to reinstall the caliper bracket. You're going to get your 2 17mm bolts. And we're going to torque those 2 17mm bolts down to 92 foot-pounds. All right, next you're going to reinstall your new brake pads. Make sure that your squealer is towards the top. So you're going to put them in on an angle. Okay, sometimes I like to pull this boot open and put a little pick under there. Be very careful not to rip it. And then I spray just a tiny bit of power lube in there. And that just seems to help this from freezing up over time. Okay, and next I like to sit a brake pad in here, one of the old brake pads, and we're gonna use our big pliers to very slowly push the piston back in. And you just gotta be kind of patient when you're doing this. And be mindful that you do not pinch and rip the boot. See, so I'm gonna let off on it. And you can see this boot has a little bubble in there, so I'm gonna kind of push that boot back in there. And sometimes I peel it up to let that little air bubble out. There we go. And that's what it should look like when it's all the way in. Next, we'll slide our caliper back on, and you might have to push these little slide pins in to fit it on. And then you'll put your 14mm bolts back in, and these will be torqued down to 20 foot-pounds. All right, and what you're gonna wanna do to torque these down is get your 14mm wrench on that bolt that might spin, and then your torque wrench on the other, and you're just gonna hit it with 20 foot-pounds should be enough. All right, next you can take your lug nut off, and don't forget to reinstall this little rubber boot cover back into the hole. All right, now we're gonna put the wheel back on. I'm gonna use this just to put the lug nuts on, but we're not gonna torque them with this. Okay, now we're just gonna lower the car down until the wheel touches the ground. And we're gonna leave it right there so we can torque everything down. And we're gonna go ahead and torque everything down to 80 foot-pounds. Again, be very careful with the wheel lock. Don't overdo this one. They will break. And then always double check. You want to do this all in a star pattern. Now we can fully lower the car down. All right, and the final step, once you're done your brakes, is to pump the brake pedal until it gets stiff. Until they're stiff. And then once you feel that it's stiff, you should be good to go. All right guys, and that about wraps it up. That's how you'll do rear brakes on a 2013 to 2020 Lexus IS 300. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I will get back to you. If this video helped you guys out, please leave me a like. And if you guys are looking for more of this kind of content, then hit that subscribe button because there'll be plenty more coming your way. Appreciate you guys sticking in to watch this one, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Have a good one.